Chapter 90. Teedy the Asthmatic.
Teedy is a scrawny teenage boy with buck teeth and asthma, but he has the heart of an overcomer. While the other boys sneak glances at Connie Bowden, Teedy boldly walks over and asks if he might come by to visit sometime. "Certainly," says the stunningly attractive Miss Bowden. "How about a picnic tomorrow?" Now it's the other boys who are gasping for air. At 5 a.m. the following morning, Teedy plops into his rowboat and throws his slight weight into the oars. It's several miles across the bay to where the Bowdens live, but Connie Bowden has invited Teedy to a picnic, and he has no intention of being late. 3 hours later, Teedy steps out of his rowboat to realize that he is fully 2 hours early. Exhausted from his rowing, Teedy lies on a rock and promptly falls asleep. He awakens an hour later to find that his boat has drifted 200 yards from shore. Resourceful and self-reliant, Teedy places his clothes neatly in a pile, swims naked to his boat, and rows it back to shore, thinking, never ask for help when you don't have to have it. Now dripping wet and bone-weary, Teedy stacks his clothes in the boat and lies down naked on the rock to dry. The sound of distant voices awakens him. Connie Bowden and the other girls are coming through the trees, and Teedy's boat has again drifted away. Teedy dives beneath the dock to hide. Later, a naked and weary Teedy swims out to his boat to begin his long, silent journey home. I never got to the picnic, he thinks, but I didn't have to ask for help either. And everything considered, not a bad day. Why didn't Teedy ask for help, you ask? Well, if Teedy had simply asked someone to row him to his boat instead of swimming to it naked, his story might have ended with a picnic instead of rowing home alone, right? Well, yes, this is altogether true. But if Teedy had been the kind of boy who was quick to ask for help, he wouldn't have been the man to lead the Rough Riders up impossible San Juan Hill. He wouldn't have been the lovable renegade who became our 26th president, and we certainly would have never carved his face into a granite mountain in South Dakota. Teedy will live forever on Rushmore with Washington, Jefferson, and Lincoln because America saw in him the embodiment of her own soul, bold enough to attempt the unlikely, resourceful to the point of nakedness, reckless to the point of near drowning, but with the heart of an overcomer. Everything considered, not a bad way to live. What impossible thing will you attempt today?
A determined soul will do more with a rusty monkey wrench than a loafer will accomplish with all the tools in a machine shop. Robert Hughes. Chapter 91. Choose to be lucky.
I decided to become a coin collector the summer after my 2nd grade, and my decision became official when I put it in a letter to my grandmother. When my father came home that night, I asked if I could search through his pocket change for interesting coins, because I'm a coin collector. Dad had only one coin that was even a little bit unusual. It was a 1955 penny, only 10 years old, but it had 2 additional 5s plainly stamped into the date. I took the penny and searched for a special place to put it. For some reason I'll never understand, I decided to pull up the air conditioner vent from the floor of my bedroom at 404 Grandview Boulevard, where I tucked the penny under the revealed edge of the carpet. I then placed the air conditioner vent into its hole and completely forgot about coin collecting until 2 weeks later when I received a book about coin values as a gift from my grandmother. On page 1 was a huge photo of my penny. The publishers of the Coin Guide were offering $100 for pennies like mine. They called it a 1955 double die. Coin books today say my penny will bring from $500 to $2,000, and that it's the 3rd rarest penny in U.S. history. But I forgot where I put it. I didn't remember pulling up the air conditioner vent and tucking the penny under the carpet until 17 years later. I knocked on the door at 404 Grandview Boulevard only to learn that the carpet had been changed 4 years earlier. No penny. Am I the luckiest person in the world for finding that penny on my very first day of coin collecting? Or am I the unluckiest person in the world for losing it? I choose to believe I'm lucky. I consider myself so lucky, in fact, that I never buy lottery tickets because I don't feel it would be fair to all the people who don't have my amazing luck. Do you have this kind of luck? You can if you'd like. An ancient scholar wrote, "As a man thinks in his heart, so is he." And I completely agree. We are the sum total of our thoughts. If you are what you think, why not think yourself lucky? It's easy to do. Just take a moment to look around and notice all the good things in your life and be glad for them. You are lucky. Very lucky. Good things happen to you for no reason at all. You are amazingly, unbelievably, mind-bendingly lucky. Don't ever forget it.
Chapter 92, UFO Taxi.
"I've got to see one more autumn," he said. "I need to sit under a tree in a sweater and eat a crisp, fresh apple." I'm in Palm Beach, Florida, riding in the back seat of a taxicab driven by a man named Brennan, who I am pretty sure is a leprechaun. Remember the character on the Saturday morning TV ad who says, "They're after me, Lucky Charms. They're magically delicious"? I think maybe this is that guy. I've never enjoyed a cab ride more. It's a long way to where I'm going, and I'm glad, because Brennan tells the kind of stories that only the Irish can tell, each one ending with a reminiscent sigh and him saying wistfully, "That was a good day." After one such story, I startled Brennan out of his reverie by asking, "What are you going to do in Oregon after you've eaten the apple?" Brennan pauses, then decides to answer. 28 years ago, he says, I bought a Les Paul gold-top guitar, and other than the clothes on my back, that guitar is my only possession. A moment of silence passes before he continues. I've been writing songs since the day I bought the guitar, but I've never finished a single line. I plan to sit under the tree, eat the apple, and finish a song. That will be my best day. Percy Ross is an 82-year-old multimillionaire philanthropist who writes a syndicated column called Thanks a Million, through which he dispenses weekly gifts of money and fatherly advice. During one of my visits with Percy, I mentioned that I've noticed his gifts tend to be rather modest, considering that he's a multimillionaire. New pool sticks for some guys in a nursing home, a wig for a woman undergoing chemotherapy, a pair of cowboy boots for a little kid who dreams of horses. Heck, Percy, I could afford to give away most of the stuff you give to people. He answers with a twinkle in his eye. I'm glad you're finally catching on. That's exactly what I hope to inspire people to do. It's amazing what a small gift to a stranger can do to change his life and yours. On September 4th at precisely 11:50 a.m., Delta Airlines Flight 1625 will deboard its passengers in Portland, Oregon. Among them will be a leprechaun. I am anxious to hear his song.
The greatest things ever done on earth have been done little by little. Thomas Guthrie. Chapter 93. History's Greatest Hoax.
Bill is a merchant, married to the woman who became pregnant when they were both 18. He lives an obscure life and dies at age 52, having never learned to read or write. Edward is a writer who calls himself the 17th Earl of Oxford. He is an educated man with a passion for tennis and is well versed in the intrigues of politics. Ed writes deep and biting satire. His wit has a razor's edge. Orphaned at 12, Edward is reared by a high-ranking government official. At the age of 21, Ed defies convention by marrying the official's daughter. The hero of Edward's next story also marries his guardian's daughter. 3 years later, Edward is on a ship when it is attacked and its passengers held for ransom. Likewise, the hero in Ed's next story is captured by pirates and held for ransom. 8 months after Edward leaves on a year-long journey, his wife has a baby daughter. Upon his return, he falsely accuses his wife of infidelity and refuses to live with her. 5 years later, Edward comes to his senses, and his loving wife forgives him his ridiculous accusations. Several of Ed's later stories feature a woman wrongfully accused of adultery, but in each story, the woman forgives her husband. During the 5 years Edward is separated from his wife, he has an affair with another woman and is physically attacked by one of her friends, resulting in a blood feud between the two families. This feud becomes the foundation for the biggest story Ed will ever write. Learning of his intentions to publish, government officials ask to read Ed's stories before they go into print. This is important only because Edward really is the 17th Earl of Oxford, and dozens of the characters in his stories are modeled after people still in government. Horrified by what might happen if the stories were published in Ed's own name, they offer him an amazing stipend for life if he will agree never to claim authorship of the work. Ed immediately agrees and chooses a name at random, never once suspecting it to be the name of an obscure merchant on the other side of town. Would Edward de Vere have accepted his government's liberal pension and inserted a name other than his own had he known that future generations would believe an illiterate merchant to be the greatest author who ever lived? For Edward did not sign his work as Bill, but chose to use the more formal name of William Shakespeare.
That every word doth almost tell my name, showing their birth and where they did proceed. William Shakespeare, Sonnet 76.